Rachael Stormonth, and I'm talking about Wipro and a recent key vendor assessment that we have produced on Wipro. So where is Wipro at today? Its fiscal 2013 revenues were up 5% to 6.2 billion. Gross margin was up primarily because of depreciation of the rupee against the dollar. Operating margin was down slightly, 18 basis points to just under 20.7%. Because of an increased investment in sales and marketing, which we'll discuss in a few minutes' time. So Wipro today, since the beginning of this fiscal year, April the 1st, it's an IT pure play, which is a good thing. All the three non-IT businesses have been demerged. What does this mean for Wipro? Greater focus, we've had the indication several times of an acceleration in investment. So the new Wipro today is about helping clients use technology for business results. And when he arrived as CEO, TK Kurian talked about redesigning Wipro to differentiate at the front end and standardise at the back end. Let's look at the front end activities first. The new Wipro describes itself as helping clients use technology for business results. And clearly the big emphasis is on evolving Wipro from helping clients purely on cost takeout initiatives, including through labour arbitrage, to helping clients use IT for across lines of business, moving beyond the CIO focus to help them in their business functions. Management refers to redesigning Wipro and has been doing so for a while now, and talks about differentiating at the front end and industrialising the back end. So let's talk about what's happening in terms of differentiating at the front end and in the go-to-market. There's four key initiatives you can see at Wipro. One is about strengthening sales and marketing. Another one is about building domain expertise, in particular micro-verticals. A third pillar is developing platform-based assets, really down to the sub-process level within micro-verticals. And in support of that, we are likely to see more acquisition activity. So let's talk about strengthening the client engagement model. Wipro is looking to move from historic strengths in impressing clients about the timeliness and quality of delivery, really being a fulfillment agent, to being more of a change agent who can help with transformational initiatives. In terms of client engagement, about 3 years ago now, Wipro started classifying its strategic accounts and also its non-strategic accounts. And there's been a lot of effort in this area, and it's been very, very important for Wipro. If you go back a couple of years to fiscal 2011, Wipro's revenues coming from its top 10 clients really trailed those of the other Indian tier 1 service providers. And in the case of TCS, if I recall, back in fiscal 2011, the gap was $1.6 billion. If you look at Cognizant, the gap between Wipro, the top 10 account revenues, and Cognizant's was twice the actual overall gap between the company's overall revenues. The importance of this initiative must not be underestimated. And in fact, there's been great progress in the last few years. The number of $100 million plus accounts has grown from 3 right up to 10. So all Wipro's top 10 accounts now generating over $100 million in revenues. If we look at the focus verticals, Wipro's really are on 4. Energy and natural resources, retail and consumer goods, banking and healthcare. Now, Wipro has got a long-standing experience in the utilities sector, but it was the acquisition of SAIC unit a few years ago that brought in tremendous capabilities in upstream oil and gas. And in fact, since the SAIC acquisition, that vertical has really been leading growth at Wipro. At times it's been almost the only one to achieve more than single-digit growth. Retail and consumer goods, just about June 2012, a fairly small acquisition, I think it was 35 million Australian dollars, of an Australian unit, brought in some good capabilities in digital marketing and analytics. And very clearly Wipro is going for that trade promotions management space, which is an interest to a number of IT vendors at the moment. Banking, I think, is about 27% of Wipro's revenues now. We're seeing a bigger focus in the last couple of years on certain micro verticals, which we discuss in the key vendor assessment. The fourth target vertical, healthcare, is actually not been a growth engine for Wipro yet, and it does suggest we may see some inorganic activity there. The vertical groups are tasked with identifying existing process assets and also developing new ones at a sub-vertical level which have a clear business value. Examples that Wipro already has, many of them which it's acquired, include very specialised offerings to the oil sector, such as subsurface reservoir management, loan origination management system through Gallagher in the banking sector, trade promotions management, and a dealer management system. The vertical groups, the ambition is to develop offerings that are really cross that full life cycle from consulting through to design, build, manage and operate, including BPO. As you would expect, Wipro is increasing its investment on disruptive technologies. One particular area is its new Analytics and Information Service line, AIM, which has been a nice little growth engine for Wipro recently. It's now generating $440 million annual revenue, and there's a lot of developments coming on through there. With cloud, there are both horizontal and industry-specific SaaS offerings being developed. And with mobility, the key vendor assessment looks at some recent initiatives and partnerships on developing mobile offerings. The key vendor assessment looks at every service line at Wipro Limited. One which is we're seeing signs of improvement is the BPO unit under new leadership. It has been considering what its priorities are, and that continues, but actually it's recently had 3 good quarters of growth, so that's an encouraging progression. A more challenging service line for Wipro currently is its R&D unit, and this is a big problem for Wipro because it's got more R&D personnel than a number of Tier 1 European telecoms specialists, OEM specialists. And Wipro is challenged by a very soft market. There's very little new product development happening in its target sectors. So what's it doing? It's going to market with a full life cycle service which goes from design right through to after sales service. Is this going to happen? Is this going to be, where's the market take up for this going to be? It's more likely to be in certain emerging regions. But really the response is a radically different proposition for R&D services. I think an interesting thing that we should expect to see from Wipro really quite soon is more acquisition activity. Back in May 2012, Azim Premji made a very strong statement that Wipro was looking to invest $1 billion in acquisition by the end of 2013, and clearly most of that, but not all, but most by a long way, is going to be in the Wipro IT Services, now Wipro Limited. Wipro's got substantial experience of acquisition, both from a string of pearl series of niche acquisitions, if we go back to the mid-2000s, right through to that of Infocrossing, which at its time was the largest ever acquisition by an Indian oriented IT service provider. To date, there have been a few small acquisitions, but by no means has that $1 billion been reached. So we should expect to see a step up. Now, the acquisition may include some client captives, it may include activity in Latin America or Germany, and it may include some consulting capabilities. But I think it's certainly one we should be looking at to see with Wipro. Now, Wipro is clearly contending with a number of challenges. It's got the slowest top-line growth at the moment and the lowest operating margin of the top 5 Indian IT service providers. 3 years afterwards, after arriving, TK Kurian is still talking about re-engineering the organisation. Growth in the US has flattened, and generally Wipro is seen slightly as being less global in mindset than its peers. But it has a vast number of strengths, and the key vendor assessment looks at many of these. It's got a very strong, well-balanced service line, and it's got a well-balanced sectorial mix, so no single vertical accounts for more than 27% of its revenues. It's growing in Europe, and it has actually got a substantial presence in emerging regions, particularly in India and the Middle East, and these account for 21% of its revenues. It's well positioned for growth in emerging regions. And I think the last two strengths that I would highlight about Wipro is it has got experience of acquiring, and it has got the deep pockets to do so. And finally, we have been seeing a real improvement in revenues coming from its key accounts, and that, I think, is very promising for the future.